Sitting down here, we'll definitely be using these. We're going to call this meeting to order.
I thought you were the spokesman for this outfit.
Yeah, well, this is a County Board of Commissioners special meeting for strategic planning. So I'm going to do the roll call, please.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, I guess we better do the pledge. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chris. Roll call, please.
Yeah,
All right,
well,
Commissioner Rennie?
they're projecting their economics.
Inman?
He's absent.
Out there.
Mortgage rates just went up.
Thomas?
Here.
Wheelock?
Here.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Lathrop?
Here.
Chairman Lemkool?
Yes. Okay. Larry, we called you in. First on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to make comment? Okay. Next, we're going to call on Pam Evans, and she can take it from there. So I don't think she needs to be introduced by anybody. Does everybody know who Pam is?
I think I know most everybody. I'm Pam Evans from North Sky Nonprofit Network, and we're a program of Rotary Charities. And I've worked with many, many boards throughout the area on strategic planning. So it's one of the things I do just about every day of the week. I'm working on a strategic plan someplace in our region. So, and I've been with North Sky right from the start. So I was the original person hired at North Sky. So I'm glad to be here. I know some of you, I don't know all of you, but we're going to get to know each other as we work on your plan. I'm going to hold this mic for a little while, and then I'm probably going to forget about it after a while, and then John's going to now and then nudge me, and I'll pick it up and remember to use it. But we're going to be writing a lot and thinking a lot and talking a lot, so that's how our morning will go. So we have 2 sessions scheduled to work on your strategic plan. And for those of you who are real task-oriented and like to see real results, some of today might be a little frustrating because we're going to talk some about a number of things to set the stage for actually developing your plan. So we're going to talk about the current state of the county and what might just want to keep in your mind and noodle on as we're planning. We're going to talk about the plans that are developed by the departments. I don't know what happened there. It sounded like it went dead. By the departments and some of the themes from those plans, because they've got some detailed strategic plans that they developed. And so there'll be some themes that John is going to share with us and some needs that they have in terms of executing those plans effectively that we want to just keep in mind as we're doing our planning. And then we're going to also talk about what's missing from those plans that just doesn't fall into the departments real neatly. So there's some things that fall into your world, things that you need to think about in developing a strategic plan that just don't fall neatly into any of the departments' types of plans. And so, what might be missing there. So we're going to talk about a lot of things early on to set the stage for then setting a focus and a vision for your next plan. And so we want to make sure that we have some really good discussion about the things you just should be considering and that might need to be included in your plan and might impact your plan and might impact the county over the next 3 years. I want you to keep a few things in mind as we're planning. So sort of some ground rules here. It's really easy for folks like us to manage. It's our comfort zone. We see a challenge, we can come up with a set of things to fix it. We can manage that. It's sometimes harder for us to see how to lead and to leave the management to the team that you delegate to. So I'm going to push you today to lead and to set the leadership for the plan and not to necessarily manage. And so as leaders, what we need to be thinking about is your job is to identify and assess challenges and opportunities. So the threats, but the good stuff too, the good opportunities that are out there, to help set a focus, set a direction, set a focus for the team, to remove barriers for them so that they can do the work. So you set the focus and then remove the barriers for them wherever you can. What kinds of things might be barriers? When I talk about barriers, what kinds of things do you think I'm talking about?
Budgetary,
Budget, for sure, budget. What else might be a,
staffing.
it's the way the staff, maybe need more staff, that sort of relates to budget, maybe different kinds of talents and expertise, maybe the current staff needs some development and capabilities. Anything else that could potentially be a barrier that you'd want to remove?
Just things, the way things are organized. We have X number of departments. It's always been that way. Maybe we need to drop some departments or add some departments or amalgamate some.
Yeah.
So just the way it's set up already.
Maybe just the way you're organized to do the work. How about,
Conflicting opinions.
Well, this is a Peter Drucker question, and I love this question. You have to ask yourself, if you were not doing something today, particular service, would you start it? You need to ask that question throughout the departments.
so really, are we doing it just because it's tradition?
We have a nasty tendency in government to do stuff just because we've always done it that way.
Start it and then
we
never
don't-
stop it.
And it's a tough question to ask yourself, because if you wouldn't start it doing something today, why are you continuing?
Right.
And that creates fear.
Right, and there might be reasons. There still might be reasons, but you want to be really deliberate about that. What other barriers might we just kind of be thinking about as we're thinking about barriers you might remove?
Our board's inability to set priorities timely, on a timely basis.
Set timely priorities, and so when something comes up or something changes, or as you set priorities for your plan, to stick to them as you need to have the follow-through, is that kind of anything else?
And if I could just add to that a little bit, we've had a 3-year strategic plan, and we try to build annually a work plan from that strategic plan. And things occur during the year that might take priority over items that are in the strategic plan that necessitates our time and our effort and our focus. So therefore, sometimes there are unknowns that we're confronted with that we have to deal with, and sometimes the plan actually gets delayed to the following year, but not on purpose, but just by the way things have shaped out during the year on unknown things that occur.
One of the realities here is we're trying to plan for 3 years, and even a month from now, we can't really predict what might change. So we need to, the plan that I will help you to create really is to set a framework from which you can reset as you need to when things change within the framework of your priorities, your priority focus. So I'll try to help you to do that, because it's just the reality. Opportunities come up and changes occur, and you need to be able to
Yeah.
shift course a bit.
I think there's a desire to please everyone, and that's impossible. But that's one of the things that I think gets in the way, is that we're trying to be everything to everyone, and we don't want to say no to anyone. There's always needs out there, and you cannot serve everyone. You
Just
cannot
can't do it
satisfy
all.
all needs.
Just can't. And we're serving the public and each other, and we want to serve them. And so part of that is it's hard to say no. And sometimes you just have to, yeah.
Yeah, and the other item, like in terms of challenges and barriers, is that there are legislative mandates that are required of county governments to fund at a serviceable level, and the state, by virtue of those mandates, have not properly helped and assisted counties in the funding of those mandates. So that's always a barrier. And, and the second barrier are downturns in the economic environment where revenues are in a decreasing trend, and you have to still try to maintain the same level of services, which becomes very challenging.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, the mandated stuff while you were speaking, Chris, thinking about some of the things you do, you might not choose to do, but you still might have to do them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the reality of the world, isn't it? Did I say
Yeah,
that?
I was just going to say, state and federal regulations, there always seem to be changing them. So we have to try and keep up with what their changes are. And that's always a barrier sometimes for us because we may not have the finances to be able to put it all together, and we can't do it in a timely fashion.
Right. The other barrier that I was thinking of, and this may or may not apply, but one that applies sometimes with other groups, is just having policies in place and practices that are maybe outdated, they don't work the way, they get in your way, get in the department's way of executing things that you need them to do. So there might be some other, just some infrastructure kinds of things like policies. I mean, you had mentioned staffing and resource, Larry, but I think that sort of fits into that category as well.
Two things that come to mind for me. We heard overwhelmingly from the departments that they would like to use more technology. We're caught in a situation where technology is growing faster and our people are more accustomed to the technology than we can possibly buy the hardware and the software to do it and implement the programs. Technology, I think, is a really thing that it's an obstacle to us because we can't budget for it and move fast enough, and the technology is advancing so fast that we can't possibly keep up with it, along with the fact the government doesn't recognize a lot of the stuff that we can do electronically. Now we have to store paper. The other thing is we have a multitude of different bargaining units and union contracts. And all of those contracts are negotiated 3-4 years at a time. And with the economic downturn, they become very difficult to fulfill the requirements of those contracts.
Sonny mentioned technology, and I have not shared this with commissioners yet, but at NACO, I sat in a technology conference for about 8 hours. The herd thinned around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I heard what other counties are doing to fund technology, and there are ways that we can do that, and so
That's great. We'll have to put that in our discussion list.
Yes, please.
So as leaders, your job is to help remove some of these barriers, and some of them you can, and some of them you can't. But to be really the group that is on behalf of the county looking at ways to removing barriers that need to be removed to help ensure success. So if it's related to budget and funding, if it's related to staffing, if it's related to technology, helping them to do that. And to think beyond the immediate. Your management team, your executive team here is handling the operations. Your job is to be the group that's really thinking beyond the immediate and thinking strategically about how to position the county for the future. No one else will do that if you don't do that. So I'm going to keep reminding you as we're working on our planning that we don't want to get too tactical. We want to leave that to the folks that need to be in charge of that, but we do want to make sure that we are setting a focus, setting a direction, and being realistic about barriers that need to be removed so that folks can be successful in pursuing that. The other leadership kind of ground rule or thinking I want to just plant before we get too far along in our planning is when we talk about highly effective leadership groups, we talk about them drawing from 3 different areas: the fiduciary, the strategic, and the generative. And I think most of you are excellent, all of us are excellent at understanding what our fiduciary role is. We know we have Public Meetings Act, we have, real requirements in terms of how we oversee money, legal compliance, all the rules and regulations, and all the fiduciary needs that you need to fulfill. We're a little less effective sometimes at strategic kinds of discussions and activities. And strategic activities are activities where you pose a challenge or an issue and you come up with a set of strategies. It's pretty clear cut. There's an issue or an item, and there's a response. We need more money to fund technology, we apply for a grant. We need more money for public services, we go for a millage. Here's a strategic issue, here's a set of activities. So sometimes we don't do enough as leadership thinking through the strategic types of issues and responses to them. And so we want to have a balance where we do both. Generative is the area that we're least comfortable in. And that's the area where we pose a question and there's not an immediate answer. Gosh, what will we do if, let's think of a good generative question. The kids count data came out, and kids in Grand Traverse County are more in jeopardy now than they were in 2011. The kids count data report tells us that there's more kids that are hungry, there's more children that are at risk of health issues and safety issues.
Let's go real world. What will we do if the state eliminates revenue sharing and we have a $2 million hole in our budget?
Right. So that's a generative question that you might not have a set of action steps right away. You might have to do some discussion, some thinking, some brainstorming about to arrive at this is how we're going to tackle that question. You might not have an immediate answer. You might actually have that discussion many times before you really have any clarity about how to move forward on that. And so that's a real-world question. And you need to get good at grappling with some of that stuff because no one else will do that necessarily. That needs to be part of your work as a leadership team. And for folks that are high achievers, I'm looking around the room, I know you're all high achievers, sometimes those kinds of discussions are uncomfortable because you want to leave with an action plan. You don't want to leave the room with there not being clear, a clear set of next steps. But you need to spend a little bit of time. You want it to be balanced. Is that me?
It sounds like somebody's getting the wireless mic fixed.
Oh,
It's working.
okay. Okay, gosh, I thought, what am I doing? Sounds
Let's
like
try this one.
Because it's cordless. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Keep those away from each other.
Thank.
Now you got to shut that one off. Turn the other one off.
Can you just click it off? Okay. Thank you.
Still,
You're underneath the speaker. Try that.
There's a really.
Pam, you got to move from underneath the speaker.
There's a speaker right there, that's what he's...
Yeah.
Right here.
Stay away from it. Come over here.
There you go.
You have to go out in the
There's,
hall.
I can see speakers.
Oh, no,
It's deadly.
another one.
There's
All
like,
right.
it's the
okay.
spot that doesn't like it.
It's deadly everywhere. Oh, it's a reason why I'm not Oprah. Though I'm sure they have her wired really nicely, don't they? So we want you, as we're talking here, we want to, the seed I want to plant with you is to not shy away from discussions that may not have a clear course, may not have a clear path, because they may be some of the most important discussions that you have. And as I said, there's no other group on behalf of the county that will spend time on those things. So we're going to start our day fairly broad.
Can we move those to a better position?
These? Oh, I can see, I feel like I'm in a minefield, because everywhere I look, I can see speakers, so.
You want to be able to access these, right?
Yeah, I want you to be able to see them,
you all see
that's
them?
all. Can you see them, okay? Okay. Okay.
Good job.
He's having a little hard time.
Take charge.
Moving furniture is your business.
Just trying to get him where,
We can't see the rest of the, I think we're going to have to move it back. You can't see everybody with.
Maybe you're going to have to deal with lawyers.
Why don't I come up here? Can we do that? Oh, he can't see him. He can't see the, yeah, if we do that, okay.
Maybe
That camera.
Okay. Okay. It's okay. I feel like I'm going to be distracting you folks, that's more, okay. What we're going to do is start off pretty broad, talk about mission and vision, and we're going to narrow down in our planning. So that's really our goal for today. And I think everybody has an agenda. Do you all have an agenda? So let's start off by talking about the mission. At the top of your...
That's terrible.
No, those are off.
Oh, these are off, okay.
Plug her back.
At the top of your agenda, you have a mission statement. So we're going to start there. Everything is about advancing the mission, right? So this mission statement is really important. The whole work of our plan is to advance this mission. So your current mission reads that the Grand Traverse County team is committed to providing responsive, effective, quality service to our community. Does that feel like a good mission? Does that reflect the work, your purpose for existing? Do you feel like it needs any refinement or changes? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Jeez.
How do you turn this off?
unscrew the back. Unscrew the back, yeah.
There you go.
Killed it.
And now you need the microphones close to you now.
Okay. I think these might be
Put down that
off.
round
I think these are off.
No, they're
No,
on.
they're
I
on.
can hear
Are
them.
they?
You're all set.
Okay, okay.
There's a barrier we can talk about.
Now we
Our
talk about
boardroom.
technology.
You know, it's one of the things as a facilitator and a trainer that I've learned, it's always the technology that will trip you up. You can have the greatest content, the greatest plan, and if the technology fails you...
So true.
And sometimes you just don't have any control. So anyway, we're good. Let's talk about the mission. Does this mission feel like it's the purpose for why you exist?
I would like to offer another type of sentence, not necessarily replace this, but to provide the services that our citizens value at a price they're willing to pay.
Dan, I don't totally disagree with you, but I have a problem anytime we mention price on anything, that I think that creates an environment that people think that they want it cheaper than, and they think they may not be getting value. So if you can get more of a broader
Good luck getting a consensus.
feeling of, not mentioning what it's going to cost and how we're going to put it together, it's just a thought. When you bring, how do we bring price and value? Because how do you judge that?
I think what I'm grabbing off that comment, just personally, is that do the citizens feel that they have value for the taxes they're paying into Grand Traverse County? And so,
The problem is the citizens don't know how much taxes they're paying to Grand Traverse County.
Yeah.
They know how much their taxes are, but they don't know what they're paying to us.
Most people think they're not getting their money's worth.
Absolutely.
Chris?
We gotta show them how they are.
Well, I'm inclined to think that our mission statement has to be broad, very, very broad. And the fact that we're going to provide as much effective service, quality service to our community, I think is good. I think, along the way, we get down to the discussion when we start talking about which services we're providing and what level of service we can can afford to provide, that's a separate discussion. But I think the mission statement has to be very, very broad, and I'm not opposed to we need to be responsive to the citizens of our community, we need to be effective, and we need to provide quality service. If we cannot provide the service of a quality that's acceptable, we shouldn't be providing the service at all. And I think that's going to come into the work plan portion, that we have services like Chris talked about earlier. We have things that we're doing that there's some question or not whether we're continuing to do them at the right level. If we're not doing them at an acceptable level, then we need to decide either we're going to increase the level of the service that we're providing, or we need to quit doing it.
Okay, so what you're advocating for, Sonny, is that we keep the statement broad, but that we define later in the plan some of the standards.
Absolutely.
So what do we mean by quality service? What do we mean by value? Absolutely. What do we mean? And getting into some detailed definition.
I'm going to disagree with our chairman.
What it's all about.
I like that statement a lot, and I like it because, and I have always liked it. It comes from budgeting for outcomes. And we do this every single day in our lives. Some of us, anytime you hire a service, you will determine whether or not you want the Rolls Royce or the Chevy. Some people view a car as transportation. Some people view it as more than transportation, a status symbol. People have different values on different services. And everybody, when you walk into a store, I will not pay $20 a pound for beef. I just can't bring myself to do it. But there are people who will not buy anything other than $20 a pound beef. So I like that statement.
Are there services you have to provide that whether folks want to pay the price or not, you just have to provide them as a county? Mm-hmm. So does this then, is it an accurate reflection of the purpose of the county?
I'm going to use that statement in regards to the recent road millage. Well, it wasn't recent, but it was a little while ago, the last road millage. People were not willing to pay the price that it was going to cost them to fix their roads. They didn't see the value in it. And when the new county road director came in front of us and started talking about, well, we need to, talk about a millage again, I said, well, if you can show the public that they're really getting a value for their money, they'll support it. They do in Leelanau County. I think that applies to everything we do in the county. There's a certain limit as to what people will pay for a service.
Christine, using the roads millage as an example isn't really that good, because a lot of people would vote for it, except their idea is, wait a minute, my gas tax is supposed to be paying for that millage and not, or for them supporting those roads and not my millage. And that's always a problem. That's why it's so hard for millages on roads to pass, is because people already are saying, hey, I'm paying 19 cents state gas tax. Why should I pay more to get my road fixed?
We recently talked about the 911 fee. I have not heard one complaint from that. Not one. People's, $1 a month, I think it's worth it, so that when I call 911, I get a response. People, I'll shut up.
Is it the role of leadership to respond to what the public feels it needs 100%, or do you also have a role in helping the public understand what it is that they need?
I think you have to, people tend to be a little selfish, and somewhere or another, our position requires that we look for what's best for the community as a whole. I think the biggest problem, and if we get back to the road millage discussion, the biggest problem with the road millage is they were not able to give the people an opportunity to know what roads were going to be fixed and how much each one of them was going to cost. And everyone that was involved, immediately said, well, they're going to fix Holiday Hills Road, what good does that do me? And, I think from our position, we need to be able to evaluate what's best for our community as a whole. And if we can't do that, then we're not doing our job as commissioners.
Well, let me put something in on that. The biggest barrier in trying to establish a mission statement, in my mind, is that our ability to extract what we think the citizens feel is important for us to focus on and to accomplish as a county commission. We've tried in so many ways to educate the public of what we do through our website and through various means of communication, and to encourage people to attend our board meetings and have them televised and to communicate to us. And it's very difficult to get any members of the public to our meetings, and that, if it doesn't involve the property next to them, or, you're going to charge me more money, we're probably not going to hear from them. So, they keep telling us it's your job as our representatives to extract what the best interest of the public is. And, I don't have to attend a meeting, that's why I elected you. So, one of the barriers of trying to accomplish what you see as a mission and a vision is the cross-section of the elected Board of Commissioners and the various backgrounds and the regions that we come from, and the people that we know, and the people we represent, trying to extract that from them and come to the board and communicate. So, it's just going to be the best, collaboration of thoughts among the Board of Commissioners to establish what we think is the mission and the vision of the county, because we're not going to get that from the public.
Yeah, I really think that that's more of a vision statement than it is a mission statement. And that's definitely should be definitely part of our mission, is that we're going to provide those citizens value and prices willing to pay. It's not our overall mission statement.
It's not your purpose for existing.
Right.
It's part of your vision of what you're going to try to accomplish.
Yeah.
I'm just, my own ignorance here, what's the difference between a vision statement and a mission statement?
Same thing.
Mission is purpose. Your purpose for existing, the purpose that the county commissioners
Vision is what you want
exist,
to be.
the purpose that, that you're in place. Vision is where you want to be in 3 years,
Going
5
forward.
years, the state you want to be, what you want to create. So if you say, over the next 3 years, what we want to achieve is that we're providing services to our citizens that they value and at a price they're willing to pay, that's our vision. Then the strategy behind this would be, well, sometimes they're not going to value it. We have to explain some things to them. So there might be an education strategy. Some of it may be getting more information from them. So
that statement might be, that one there I provided might be more of a vision statement than a mission statement.
Yes,
Okay.
it might be more what you want to try to achieve as a group versus your purpose for existing. Is your purpose for existing to provide services that citizens value at a price they're willing to pay? I mean, that might be your purpose for existing.
Actually, I believe our purpose is public safety, public health and safety. Now, that can flow into a safe environment, public health, and when I say a safe environment, you can say, the land, the earth, because that needs to be safe, and that will keep us healthy, and also, the Sheriff's Department, public health and safety, public health department, public health and safety, parks, it's public health.
Courts.
The courts, public health. I think our purpose is public health and safety for existing.
Well, it's a little more broader than that. mean,
We have certain statutory
Right.
legislative requirements that have to be in there that don't necessarily apply directly to health and safety.
Right.
You know, I think health and safety obviously has to be our number one priority. But I don't believe it is our sole mission, because we have certain legislative requirements, fiduciary requirements, that are the responsibility of the county. You know, if we don't do that part, we won't be able to
Right.
do any of the other things. But,
Yeah.
you know, personally, I don't have a problem with the mission statement, because I think it's important that it stays very broad. I think once we start talking about specifics, absolutely, public health and safety comes to, the top of the list as far as priorities. But there are other things that the county is responsible for, both statutorily, morally, and everything else to our community, and that includes our fiduciary responsibilities and our legislative responsibilities.
So I'm hearing one vote, Sonny, for keeping the mission statement where it's at, but building in specifics into your plan related to customer service standards, value, pricing, public health and safety.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. We just understand that, we have a broader purpose by statute, because we're the governing board of Grand Traverse County, and that, our primary purpose is, budgetary and policy, and, in the direction of, how money and policies are set here at the county. So that's the broader view, and then you fold down from there.
I think, it just struck me that one of the issues that everybody has, that we all struggle with, when somebody says, what do you do as a county commissioner? What does the county do? What's the county provide? What's our 30-second elevator speech? Is that a mission statement, or is that a vision, or how does that fit within what we're trying to do here?
Well, it's what you do. I mean, the mission is what you do.
So so if we told the Grand Traverse County is committed to provide a responsive, effective, quality service to our community, does that tell people what we do? It doesn't.
Our main job is one sentence: take care of your money. That's simple.
But is it your job, is your primary job to ensure that services are delivered to the county?
Sure.
I mean, is that your primary job, a set of services and?
Maybe not. Maybe it's provide a safe, healthy environment for people to live and be able to provide for themselves. When you start looking at this, and you start looking at talking about what is it that a county commissioner does, or what is it the county does, then you start narrowing down what should your mission statement be, because then it communicates to the community, this is what we do for you, and then the rest of it is how we're going to go about doing that.
So if your primary purpose for existing is to provide a safe and healthy environment for the residents of the county and visitors,
Right.
then you do that by providing services, by making sure that there's certain policies in place and procedures in place, that you collaborate on specific initiatives that make that happen. So there's a number of ways that you make this mission happen.
Well, public safety can also incorporate fiduciary responsibility. When deeds are transferred, they have to be done so that the public has a safety net. I mean, that they're done accurately. When the treasurer issues a check, that's public safety. You got to keep. You have to provide the public.
That's too big of a stretch, Chris. It just is.
I don't think so.
No. Public safety is public safety, and healthy environment is great. There's no question about that. But the responsibility of the county to collect taxes and to be the fiduciary and distribute the funds to all the taxing entities within the community, that's not a safety issue. The fact that we the Register of Deeds takes care of a land split. The fact that the clerk's office registers the birth of a child at Bunsen Hospital. Those are not safety issues, but they are the responsibility of the county.
But they are, they're one of the ways that you deliver
We provide the service, but
provide- yeah, I
by no
mean-
stretch does that directly relate to the safety or the environment of our community.
I agree. I mean, there are statutory responsibilities, and then there are other things that we do.
There are services that we provide that have nothing, and we're required to provide, and we have to provide, and we want to provide, that have nothing to do with the safety and the environment of the community. You know,
So could we come up with a statement that, I mean, in the mission statement, do we say that we want to provide those services that we have to provide, plus we want to provide services that of public health and safety that are of value to our community? I mean, should we mention what you just said, Sonny?
well, you know, I think that's where it goes from the mission statement to the vision statement to the priorities. The mission statement needs to be very broad, which is the way it is right now. We provide responsive, effective, and quality services to our community. We don't talk about we provide road patrol. We don't talk about that we provide animal control. We don't talk about that we do, you know, birth certificates. We talk about we provide effective services to our community. The mission statement needs to be very, very broad. And then as we work down toward the vision statement, and then when we work through the priorities, then we talk about specifically, all right, when we talk about a healthy environment, you know, then we talk about, you know, the septic plant, we can talk about the water and sewer plants, we can talk about what we do with the health department, with the inspections of water wells and septic permits, all of those kind of things. They come into when we talk about the healthy environment. When we talk about safety, we talk about the sheriff's department, we talk about the marine division, we talk about, you know, rural fire, we talk about those kind of things. But those are specific to a specific function that we do. They aren't necessarily part of our mission statement. Our mission statement needs to be very, very broad.
Are you happy with this existing mission statement?
Personally, I'm happy with the current mission statement because it's very broad. It doesn't talk about any specific services that we're providing. It talks about we're going to provide responsive services. That means that this is what the community wants, and we all know that what the community wants today is not the same thing that they're going to want 3 months from now. And we're going to be doing it in as effective manner as we can, both in doing it right and doing it efficiently with pricing, and that we're going to continue to provide quality service to our community. And I think the key word here is quality, effective service. If we can't do that, then we probably are in a lot more trouble than we think we are.
The good news is we're not going to rewrite the mission statement here today. But what I do need to hear from you is some direction about, first of all, do you want to keep it just like it is, or do you want me to try to rewrite it in some way for you before we get together again?
Personally, I agree with Sonny Wheelock. I think it should be very broad and general, and then get specific further down the line,
I'm fine
as
with
we
it.
talk about the various issues.
And then make sure that we do address what we mean by quality, what we, you know, that we incorporate public health and safety, that we incorporate the fiduciary duties somewhere in there. So you're Charlie, in support of just keeping it the way it is.
Yes, I am.
Anybody else?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I'm fine.
How about you, Richard? Do you feel like we should keep it as it is, or should we change it?
Pretty much the same, because so much what we end up doing doesn't necessarily follow the statement of the plan. We have to be reactive to the real world.
That's where the responsive part comes in.
I've lived with it for 6 years, I can live with it.
Okay.
I can live with it for
But we will need, I think, to clarify some aspects of this mission
We could spend-
later in the plan.
We
yeah.
could spend hours and hours arguing about that statement. It's fine.
Trust me, I know that. So, how about you?
I'm fine.
You're okay to keep it we're going to keep it as it is.
Sure.
Sounds like everybody, Dan stepped out, so we'll double check with him. How about you, Dave? How do you feel? Do you feel the current mission statement, if we're put some definition behind terms like quality?
Yes, I think
Would,
I think it covers everything. I just note that we're representative government. We can't possibly, it's the epistemology question. You can't possibly know what everybody thinks. You cannot possibly hope to do what the public wants because you can't know what the public wants. And even when we even heard it, even when you have a vote, you don't know what the public wants. You only know what
After
those
you
people who
voted.
voted want. And there's a whole bunch of people out there that you represent that don't vote. So do you only represent the people you vote for, that vote in the elections, or do you represent everyone? Well, sometimes you got to protect the environment and you got to do things for people who didn't go to the polling booth. But the reality is, you really have to get reelected and all those things, so you have to be responsive to those people who elect you to office. So I think it's a great,
Dave, is that something similar, Midland? Did Midland have a mission, vision, strategic plan thing?
yes,
Document? Is this similar to
very.
what Midland did?
It's very similar. I can't tell you exactly what the mission statement said, but it had to do with responsiveness. That was one of the words in the mission statement. Effectiveness and efficiency, I think we're in there. It was very broad, just like that. And then you start drilling down to, what do we want to do? Well, we want to provide quality services at a reasonable price, and we want to make sure it's essential services, not just ones that, a small group wants and that kind of thing.
Okay, good.
Okay,
And
good.
because of the Dow
Okay.
Chemical, they were big on air quality.
Dan, when you stepped out,
We voted.
most of the... And we're going to ask you to rewrite the mission statement before our, no. It sounds like the group is in agreement that they would like to keep the current mission statement. It's broad enough, reflects well enough your work, and that we would add into the plan some strategies or initiatives related to, or language related to providing services citizens value at a price they're willing to pay, public health and safety, and some definition of what we mean by quality
So you guys
services.
pretty much want to keep the mission statement the way it is? I believe in you guys.
Okay, good. We have
Good thing I left.
full consensus. Great. Great. Okay. So let's shift to our next activity.
Vision.
And no, we're gonna leave vision for a little while, just for a little while. And we already, as we were talking about how leaders remove barriers, we sort of had a little bit of discussion there about some of the challenges that the county faces. So I don't want to let's not spend more than 15 minutes on this, but I do want to have some discussion about the challenges that are in the county now, that and the current state of the county. So let's talk about the current state of the county and the climate in which you're creating this plan. So they could be good things going on as well as some challenging things. So they're not all negative necessarily. There's lots of wonderful things going on in our county right now, lots of opportunities presenting themselves, but we want to talk about what the current state is. I'm going to ask you to state out loud not the challenge, but an aspect of what is going on in our county. And say it out to us. And I'm going to ask you to write it on a card. And I'm going to start tacking things up. And I've got lots of cards. Oops. John. What I'm going to have you do is hand those out, and I also have some little Sharpies here. That would be great. Give them a few. I think this is a chatty group. I think they're going to have...
Can I write it? If someone came up to me and said, Larry, what is the state of the county? I would have a paragraph form statement for them. So do you want me to write it out, or do you want me to just put bullet points down?
All right, let me read.
The state,
Because,
why do I have my glasses sitting here?
the governor will
Instead of
come
on
in,
my
this is the
face.
state of the state, okay?
Yeah, okay.
And I would come, some counties actually have an annual meeting where the chairman stands up and goes, the state of the county is X, or here's our financial position, here's our this, here's our that, here are our challenges, boom.
What I'm looking for are more specific elements that when we put it all together, we could write your paragraph.
Okay.
So right now, for example, the county's growing.
County what?
Is growing?
Okay.
Population growing?
Yeah, over the last 10 years.
Yeah, population is growing. So some of those sorts of things, what's going on that kind of helps us paint a picture when you put it all together of the current state. The word is state.
State your what? I can't.
You want
State-
one item on one card, or you want?
One item per card. It's state, aspect was
Thank
the word.
you.
State and aspect is what I put there, Christine.
All right.
I need to put a, and I had down challenge earlier, and I want to change that because I don't want it to be negative. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff happening as well as some other challenges. So there's a mix of things going on in our county, right? It's growing, we've got some great economic things happening, but we also have some other kinds of things happening in the county that we want to keep in mind while we're doing our planning. So one per card. I'm going to tack things up. I'm going to ask you to read it out. Back there.
So this can be good or bad? Just
Good or bad?
Okay.
What you got? Except it doesn't have anything there yet.
No, not yet.
How many do you want us to do each?
You have something there, Larry?
I have a bunch of them, but I'm still writing.
Okay. Looks like you've got something there somewhere.
Well, I just think we need to realize that Grand Traverse County is in sound financial shape considering the overall condition of the economy statewide and nationally.
So, Grand Traverse County's in sound financial shape. We're not in the situation that
Other counties.
Detroit.
are around us.
that Wayne County's in, right?
Well, that's kind of what I did. The financial strength of the county is excellent with a strong fund balance and a AA Standard & Poor's bond rating.
So strong economy, or grow, or strengthening economy.
No.
Always use it.
No. It says the county, the state of the county's financial strength is excellent.
Financial strength is excellent. What else we've got? Deteriorating roads and infrastructure.
John, I think she's going to need a hand. Her lawyer's too short.
I'm kind of organizing them, actually, so. Okay. You're going to be my Vanna White? Thanks, Herb.
Quality employees and administration.
Put it, let's put that there and move the deteriorating roads there. Thanks, John. What else we got?
Unfunded retirement funds.
Legacy.
Unfunded retirement funds. Let's put it with financial. We'll kind of cluster all the financial stuff together.
As a general rule, I believe there's a public distrust of government as a whole.
Public distrust of government in general.
Is that
Let's put that
mistrust?
with, or
Distrust.
distrust of government in general. Looks like
I
you've got
don't
to.
want you to read mine.
Oh, come on now, Chris. We value your input.
You can read them.
Stick them up there.
Okay. Unassigned fund balance was 11 million plus in 2009, and it dropped to 2 million in 2011. So there's
According to
a,
the audit books.
yeah. And unrestricted net assets dropped from 52.9%. 52.9.
52%.
Dropped 52.9 from 2009.
That's according
Yeah.
to the audit.
Put it with the financial stuff.
That's not right. Our fund balance didn't drop to $2 million.
Less commissioners, more time
Said
commitment
unrestricted
from
net
I didn't
us.
say fund balance.
Doesn't,
Less commissioners, more time commitment. Let's put that with that, yeah, thanks.
Technology.
A good? We have it?
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity.
There you go. There's 3. Need to update county's technology needs for staff members. Reduction
Right there, yeah,
trend in
yeah.
revenues occurring over the past 4 years. Delay in salary and compensation information together with an updated position classification plan.
I know what I want.
Okay, so we've got a reduction trend in revenues occurring over the past 4 years. Over there. And delay in salary and compensation information together with an update position classification plan. Let's put that with quality employees and administration.
I was writing, I don't know if anybody wrote that down.
Employee morale is low. Yeah. What else we got?
lots of collaboration.
Lots of collaboration.
Yes.
Good at collaboration. Let's put that in that column there, yeah.
Not enough outside professional advice.
Not enough outside professional advice.
Financial future in question.
Financial future in question.
Good board that is willing to work as a team.
A good board that is willing to work as a team. Where do we have the county? Oh, down there, yeah, perfect.
We've got a good jail system, but I think we'll need a new one.
Good jail system, but we'll need a new jail. Let's put that right there.
Revenue reserves for future capital improvements in facilities.
All right,
So
we
that's
have
gonna
them?
be a challenge, we don't have one.
Don't have them.
It's been depleted,
Can you just say we don't have them, so
just a depleting.
depleting, great, perfect. Depleting revenue reserves for future capital improvements in facilities. Oh, financial, yeah, thank you.
I have long-term needs of county facilities, both new and existing. You know, we have a
Long-term-
lot of old buildings that are going to need issues.
Long-term needs of county facilities, new and existing, I think, with infrastructure, yeah.
That was the one I just wrote down. Facilities well-maintained but have some need of updating.
Facilities well-maintained, but some need of updating.
She didn't want to come over here. Neither one of those are necessarily anything to do with the county.
Okay.
Government is just the county.
Okay. So inflation, which just is a factor of the overall economy,
I see coming.
and lower tax revenue caused by lower real estate values. Are real estate values coming back
Yep.
in Grand Traverse? So that,
They say they are, but
okay.
My 2 properties in East Bay, real estate assessed value dropped 3%
Okay,
from last year to this.
okay, so not coming back fast enough.
Mine dropped,
Yeah, yeah,
which is good for my tax bill.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Well, we can cluster it with stuff, I guess. Yeah, let's put them both there. No, we'll mess around with reclustering them.
Here you go.
Unknown healthcare, where it's going to go.
so
Unknown
true.
healthcare mandates or requirements, right, from the Affordable Health Care Act. Yeah, let's put that there.
Current and future needs of prosecutor's office and their facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Oh, yes.
living in an old beat-up building right next to
Oh,
the
yes.
government center, and they're stacked up on top of each other, and
They're working out of closets.
we...
Future
yeah, we
needs
need
of
to do something
prosecutor's
with that.
office, and I put that with infrastructure. What I got? Scattered, unfocused economic development strategy.
Ooh,
Yeah, there.
I like that. And it's true.
Better way to report finances
We
to our
we were
board
working
and to
on it,
our
and then they
voters.
decided it needed to be regional instead of local, so.
A better way to report finances to our board and voters. We'll put that there for now, but we may end up moving it.
Better grant development.
Better grant development. Put that, just put that in with that for the moment.
A better way to talk to our voters, not just through the newspaper.
Okay, better way to talk to our voters, not just through the newspaper. So let's, John, let's put that one, and then the one about better way to report, put those two together, yeah.
Not them.
But we like them.
I like them, but
Okay.
we need our own PR
Multiple labor
person.
contracts.
Multiple labor contracts. Is that with the employee stuff, maybe?
It would not be a complete
guy?
session unless you wrote that down, Sonny.
That's true.
Everybody?
I've been working on a master labor contract since I got here 14 years ago.
I know you have.
You know,
I know you have.
Let's see, what do I have?
we're getting closer, but we're still
That's enough
not
what you got.
Better communication to the public, public information director.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, right
My
there.
contract would just simply say
Cool.
worker get fired.
Okay.
Yeah, really.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'm the right one. Value of parks and recs.
Value of parks and recs. So let's put that here with the infrastructure stuff for a moment. Anything else?
priority of services.
So what,
Sorry, I can't
that we
reach
need
that out.
that we need
We
to,
simply cannot continue to be everything for everybody. We're going to have to prioritize the services that we provide.
okay.
Budgeting
So,
for outcomes.
okay.
It wouldn't be a complete session if I didn't
I know.
say that.
Let's put it on its own for the moment. Okay.
I'm used to be out on my own.
Human services needs, poverty.
Human services needs, poverty. Let's put that, let's put the service-related stuff together over there.
Determination of recent high turnover in staff at the county.
Determination of recent high turnover of staff at the county with the human resources stuff, John.
Preserve water quality.
Preserve water quality. Why don't we put that where we've got Parks and Rec, and we'll kind of mess with that a little bit in a minute. Anything else? So we've got
I'm
some,
going to put one down, number of committees, committee structure.
Organizational, yeah.
For commissioners or county as a whole?
Both? Commission, both.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you.
Certainly. I have an extra one here if you want.
too few county commissioners are at? Where's that at?
I think you've got an organizational category somewhere.
Okay.
That's all right.
Okay, we'll reorganize this a little bit in a sec. So we've got a number of aspects of the economy and the financial situation. The economy, the economic status of Grand Traverse County is relatively strong considering everything that's going on in other counties, but there's been some decline in your reserves, it sounds like, and some of your financial situation, so it's not necessarily a perfect picture. And you have a lot of needs that to spend money on. So you've got a lot of infrastructure needs that you talked about. So the facilities, the county facilities, the roads, the jail, technology, number of infrastructure needs that you have laid out. You also have laid out some service areas that you need to prioritize the level of service and the types of services that you're providing, and there's some unmet needs in human services with poverty and folks that have some real urgent needs. So there's some service needs. And there's some communications needs that in the county. So being able to communicate better with voters and report to them about how their money is spent, what the value, I think we talked about the value of their tax dollars. We also have talked about communication about just generally what you're accomplishing and what is needed, and a better way to communicate with folks beyond the newspaper. Better communication with the public, and potentially a public information director. We also talked about the fact that the commissioners themselves have gone through some restructuring, so you have fewer commissioners and have a need to really look at your committee structure. And I think we should do that as part of this plan, if we can. So when we get toward the end of this plan and you're looking at how to implement it, let's look at the committee structure, because you won't be able to effectively implement your plan without a good committee structure in place to help you to do that. So let's do that. Under human resources, you've got some turnover. You've got quality people in place, quality people here in administration, quality people here working for the county, but you've had some turnover. Morale is low. You've got the complexity of multiple labor contracts, and a real need to do the salary and compensation study and look at job descriptions and some of that work, so some of that human resources work. And we talked about the asset of your Parks and Recs area, as well as the need to preserve water quality here in the county. So I think at a kind of a quick, on unfunded health care or unknown impact of the healthcare legislation on what might happen here in the county, on your on what you need to provide for folks who are employed here or folks within the county.
I've got one more. I want to talk about the township partnerships with the Sheriff's Department.
So David said we've got some good collaborations.
We do.
And so with that, we also need to strengthen these partnerships.
Well, you know, there are townships that are saying, you know, maybe the county should fund that. Why are we paying extra? And I'd like to make it a more solid relationship.
Okay.
And by the way, I do have Midland County's mission statement.
Oh.
The mission of the Midland County Board of Commissioners is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the residents of our community and our employees.
Oh,
There it is, 2013.
I've got one more too.
generic
good.
and simple.
I think we need more meetings like this,
Must have
not
been the
just
vision.
once a year. Because
Had
this forum is
responsiveness and
good.
That's what they wrote.
Effectiveness and
Right here.
efficiency.
This forum is good. Normally, when we vote on things, we can never do this.
Right.
I really appreciate this. I think we need to do this more than once a year.
Have this.
Well, the city has study sessions where they
We
do
didn't get this.
sit down and just talk about things.
Well, this is, I mean,
Plan
normally
for
when we sit and work out things, we
unfunded
don't do
portion of it.
this.
Well, I don't think so.
And,
True.
Yeah, that's a real problem.
That's
I think this is good.
So, and a plan for the unfunded portion of the defined benefit program. So we'll put that with the employee section.
That's the pension liability.
That's the pension liability. Oh, is that up there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
It was up there, but that's
Okay, I
okay.
didn't know.
Yeah, I'll do some, what I'll do is organize this a little bit. So, the purpose of doing this is really just to kind of plant some seeds of things to keep in mind as we're doing our planning. And as I said, we're going to spend some part of today just getting informed. And so the next thing we want to do to get informed is to have John provide us with a bit of a briefing on the plans that the departments did. You recall each of the departments did a strategic plan. And so we want to make sure in your plan that we are responding to common themes, challenges, And areas of support. Remember, we talked about your leadership role? We want to make sure that we are supporting them and removing barriers to those plans being successful.
Please do. Here, take the chair, I'll grab it.
No, that's perfect.
The first one's a quality issue.
Good morning, I'm John Syke, the Planning and Development Director for Grand Traverse County, and what I've just passed out is kind of a summary document to kind of take the 20 plans, the department plans that administration received that are the strategic plans for those 20 departments. So what you'll see in this table here, across the top are a list of all 20 departments in alphabetical order, starting with the administration and going all the way over to the right with Veterans Affairs. On the left side is the themes, and this was an attempt to really, as I read through all the different plans, was to kind of summarize them, to see where there was common elements or common themes. There's 14 of them listed there, and they're in priority based on the amount of times that they popped up and mentioned in some form within those department plans. So let me just quickly kind of review those 14 themes. The first one is commitment to core services or customer service. This is where whatever that department was set up to do is really a renewed commitment to making sure that those services are delivered, that they're quality services, that they're responding to customer needs, that they're done efficiently and effectively. The second theme is technology and services on the internet. So in terms of technology, it could be hardware, software, but it also lumped in there was internet, and realizing that the internet is a vehicle for delivering services in addition to kind of coming through the door in the buildings, but also services on the internet. Number 3 is internal, external communications, community relations, those types of things, getting information out to the public. 4 is, the fourth one down, is intergovernmental cooperation, collaboration with others. So that could be government-to-government collaboration. It could also mean working with other agencies outside of government. It could be nonprofit organizations and so forth. New programs, services, and products. So where the core services was focused on those things that department is been tasked with. New programs and services and products is looking at expanding on that core services. Training for employees, officials, and others. This training could relate to internal training as well as in training for other officials within the county. Could be local elected officials or other people. Planning and programming is really focused on looking more long-term, looking at improvements that need to be made, looking at budget issues and so forth. Long-term funding, financial soundness, and alternate sources of funding. So really trying to be looking at the ways that program, that department can be secured in its funding, and maybe looking at alternate sources and seeing ways of additional revenue. Performance, accountability, and effectiveness is really understanding how they're operating and making sure that there's that quality level, that they're being effective, that the services that are delivered out into the community are what are done well. Protect, improve the environment and our natural resources, pretty self-explanatory. Consolidation of services, that could be consolidation within the department or also within other groups or entities working together, kind of somewhat in the vein of the collaboration, but more actually specific services. Productive workforce, equitable wages and benefits and labor contracts, kind of lumping that whole HR element together and realizing that that's a goal for their strategic plan. The 13th one is economic development in targeted industries, and then the last one is stewardship and volunteering. The marks there are just basically an indication that those themes were mentioned in the strategic plans, and then they're tallied on the far right. So you get a numerical tally, which prioritizes them, and then you can get an idea in terms of percentage that's based on the percentage of the full, 100% would be all 20 plans, so that just gives you kind of an indication of if there's a majority or not on those. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments regarding these themes?
Yeah, my question on number one is a commitment to core services. I'm questioning, what is that really looking at? Do we identify all of our core services? I mean, I think each one of these people that come in, and they talked about that their core service, but is it our commitment on our part as commissioners to identify what should be core services should be there, and then we can kind of align our budgets accordingly, because we all want to make sure that we get quality customer service. We want to make sure that the employees are trained as best as they possibly can, and we want to make sure that the customers are satisfied. But what is the core services?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, I think for the departments, they were looking at their mission.
Right.
But in terms of, there isn't, overarching, certainly.
I found it interesting that only 3 departments mentioned the productive workforce and equitable wages and benefits.
Yeah, I know.
Because I'm pretty sure I've heard from
Everybody wants that.
every department that they want to see some sort of job description reclassification. I think I've heard that from one side of the department to the other, or one side of the county to the other. And it's interesting that only 3 departments, administration, 911, and human resources, even talked about it.
That's part of the way the question was asked, we were asking them to outline their vision, and their tasks that they thought that they needed to accomplish.
Well, and I think
the
that's
question of whether, employees were, had inequities in classification wasn't really brought up, but if you ask, just about every department, you're gonna run into that question, that response.
And my concern is that I think that maybe that fallacy falls through the rest of these reports if we just simply look at the numbers, because of the fact that they were specifically asked to what affects your department, and they looked at their goals and how to manage their goals. They didn't look at what was providing services to the county.
Right.
Because, all of these departments, a number of these things are going to affect each and every one of the departments, but it's not something that they have the ability to change within their department, so they didn't put it down as their part of their plan. If it wasn't something that they could effectively make a difference in, they didn't include it as part of their plan. So I think we need to make sure that when we evaluate this, we look at what those things are, and just because they didn't support that in their little hash marks or check marks in the boxes, doesn't mean that they're not important to make their department work more effectively. Because, like I say, I think what we've seen in the strategic plans is what will make us do our job and our department better, not what makes the overall program better.
Good job, John. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I have a question about performance, accountability, and effectiveness. And I was looking at it, and I see IT doesn't have it checked. That's basically what they're all about, is performance, effectiveness, and accountability. And I heard that from Don when he was in here saying, I've got a whole bunch of old equipment that's busting on me, and I'm fixing that versus,
It's a perfect example of where the department didn't feel that they had the ability within their department to make it any better.
And because you said that, that's why I mentioned this.
What struck me, what struck me is how many of these things are on your list. I think the only ones that I identified that hadn't been earlier were training for employees. Oh, sorry. Training for employees.
Can we plug that into the center?
Consolidation of services. I mean, we sort of alluded to it a little bit when Sonny was talking about priority of services, but we didn't really list that. And stewardship and volunteering. were the 3 areas that didn't make it. But everything else, this list here, you brought up in this earlier exercise. So it looks to me...
We're going to plug your mic into the center. That'll give you a longer leash. As we're watching her dragging around, I thought,
If it fits.
Thanks. Okay. So I think that even though every department might not have indicated it, every single of these areas in their plan, it feels to me like you're very much on the same page in terms of some things.
well, and I think that's a credit to the county board, that we interact with the departments, we interact with the employees, and we really have an understanding of what services we're providing in this community.
Is it realistic in the plan, I think it was Herb who brought up, what core services do we commit to? Is it reasonable to really talk about that at some point in your planning? What are the core services that, no matter what, are going to be delivered from this county and at what level of service?
I think we have to talk about what outcomes we want rather than services. And
I think you got to do both.
and I'm going to give public health as a real easy example. An input is ordering vaccine. An output are the number of vaccinations you do. The outcome is public health. So,
So many people get the
or
disease.
no viruses for the
Right. Healthy public. Healthy public, yeah.
Well, I think if you're going to do this right, you're going to have to define what are mandated services by statute, what are not mandated services that we provide, and then what we want to do is we want to do an analysis of the core services within the mandated area and the core services within the non-mandated areas. Then you get into the measurement of each one of those, and then you make a determination, okay, we have to keep the mandated service at a certain level, and what's left is available for non-mandated services, and then we need to prioritize those and say, okay, these are the areas that we have more flexibility with because we're not required to fund them, but we think they're good for the community, and at what level do we want them at?
Yep.
So I think you got to look at it as a full picture.
So do like a table that we can
Well,
look at.
it's not quite just that simple, though, because of the fact the sheriff is required by law to operate a jail and to pick up dead bodies. He is not responsible for road patrol, he's not responsible for community policing, he's not responsible for
He's responsible for them, he's not
Marine
mandated
division.
to do them.
He's not mandated. But in our community, that is a service that is expected, and we have to evaluate the value of that.
But I think if
The thing about it is you have to look really close at the mandated services, and, there are some mandated services that we should be, meeting the minimum requirements and moving on, because some of it is so outdated that we shouldn't even be doing it anymore, but the law still says we have to.
Yeah, and
But the fact is that there are non-mandated services that are probably more important than two-thirds of the mandated services to this community.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your comment, but I think from a strategy point, I think you got to outline them separately, and then just say, our community, we feel our community needs road patrol and community policing officers, and the focus on that as a non-mandated service, and that's where we're going to focus on non-mandated services as a priority, and then we go down from there. I don't disagree with your analysis of the importance of what else the sheriff does and what else we fund. We just have to recognize that those are services that we're putting into the community that are not mandated. And you got to give it an example. Other communities, if you want road patrol, you have to have a road patrol millage. Grand Traverse County is one of the counties that have decided that we're going to fund the Sheriff's Department road patrol and other services within the Sheriff's Department by the use of the general fund. So we as a county have a different priority than other counties within the state of Michigan in terms of what we feel are the important things we need to focus on the non-mandated services.
Dan had a comment, I think.
Well, I was just you just took the words out of my mouth. That, yes, they're mandated, but that doesn't mean we have to provide them at the level we are right now. Just because something's there can be a minimal meeting up to the mandate requirements. We don't have to necessarily go over those. And I don't know what those would be, but just because they're mandated doesn't mean that we have to spend all our money on them.
Right.
I think, Charlie, I might have cut you off earlier. I apologize for that. Did you have a comment that you wanted
Just
to
a
make?
quick comment. I'm kind of agreeing with Sonny on this. I look at this spreadsheet here, and I don't see what, if you're looking at these percentages, that shouldn't be the focus top to bottom of where we're going. I think this board should have more vision than that.
No, and it's not intended, it's really just to give you some information. So it's not intended to set priorities for you in any way, but we were trying to, because you had heard the overviews of all those plans, and it was so much information, we were trying to summarize it for you in an easy table so that you could have it as just information for your planning.
I was just wanted to add that I've done a lot of non-mandated versus mandated service analyses in other counties, and I can tell you how it'll turn out here, because I've seen it turn out the same way everywhere else, and that is every other mandated service that you provide is dwarfed by the sheriff's department. The amount of money you're putting into road patrol is miles beyond everything else you do that you put money into. And so, and as far as the non-mandated or the mandated services go, you have squeezed most of those places to get it to the place where you're at the edge of quality versus being able to provide that service with some kind of quality. And if you start cutting below that, you're going to have to give things up, and the public is going to start saying, hey, I used to be able to get this, today. Now I got to wait a week or two or whatever. And so, county government's been around for 150 years or more. And, so we've created this mix of services over time, and we're not really spendthrifts. It's always been, even when it was the Board of Supervisors, it was all township supervisors, and then it became the Board of Commissioners. It's been pretty frugal with the way it spends its money. And so, when you look at the courts, about 20% of your budget, you're going to be able to, you might be able to look and knock something down, but you're probably going to be taken away from some service delivery. But there are some places where people aren't, in any organization of 500-plus people, there are going to be people that aren't contributing 100% to the task, and management hasn't taken that on. But I would submit that it's probably a lot less, there's a lot less occurring here in county government than you would think.
Unfortunately, somewhere between 55 and 60% of our budget
Public safety.
is spent managing 5 to 8% of our population.
That's the truth.
That is the sheriff's department, the courts, and the jail.
And
Prosecution,
about,
payroll, everything else.
So the bottom line is,
70%
we spend at least
mandated.
pretty close to 60% at least of our budget manages 5 to 8% of our population.
Probably closer to 2% of our population.
Yeah, well, I've
And 70%.
seen all different kinds of numbers
well,
because of the transient population.
And 65 to 70%, really, if you break it down, equates to public safety. Courts, jails, probation, parole, prosecution,
Well,
all that stuff.
I'm not lumping all of the sheriff's budget because of the fact that I believe there's some of it that has value, other than managing that population, but it is what it is.
Any other questions for John or comments on that?
Yeah,
the
I was
table?
going to, thank you for asking. John, I was going to ask you, how, just in a paragraph or two, a sentence or two, how do you analyze this graph you handed out to us? Can you summarize it for us?
Well, I think actually you've done a pretty good job in recognizing that when you ask departments to develop a strategic, I don't know what.
John needs a microphone.
Oh, that's right, that's not.
You unplug that.
Sorry. When the departments were asked to develop a strategic plan over the next 3 years, I think you hit it on target. They're going to be looking at those things that they, in terms of their mission and what their services are that they're providing. there are some things that certainly they may recognize, but they're not going to put it into a strategic plan that they really feel are out of their realm. But really, these are the priorities in terms, I think, in the way the service delivery for these departments are.
So you would say that, in general then, next to customer service, core services, technology was on most of their minds?
I would probably take those top five, even though there's, I think there's, in terms of the core services and customer service as a priority, technology, communications, cooperation and collaboration, and new program services and products.
Thanks, that's what you want to hear. I value your input. So.
Okay, thank you.
John, just a quick question while you're right there. And we always evaluate the department's strategic plans. Can you give us any feedback of how you feel the departments feel the county board is at planning for the needs of our community? We never ask that question, but, you work with the various departments throughout the county, and it's always interesting for me, I know what the departments, most of them do, and I understand, and I read their strategic plans, and I know how they feel they can provide their services better. What kind of feedback can you give the commissioners as to how we can make it better for the commission or the departments to do their services?
Well, I think a lot of the departments actually feel that they get great support from the board. And so I don't think that's the issue. I think where they're looking for is they're looking for some leadership. They're looking at their horizon beyond, the next year or so. They want to see where the direction of the county as a whole is going. And I think that's really important for them because they're trying to look long-term, but they want to make sure that they're carrying out the priorities of the county board. So the clearer that the priorities of the county board are to them, the easier it is for them to figure out what is going to be their strategic plan.
Well, and we are at the end of our last 3-year strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we are there. We've been a little lax in probably moving forward. Larry talked earlier about trying to do an annual plan each year and tack it and get to the end, and we were unable to do that, for a multitude of different reasons. But the fact is, we're at the end of the 3-year strategic plan that we produced the last time, and I believe that our departments have done an excellent job of implementing that strategic plan, and I think overall they agree with that strategic plan, which means we must have done something right. So it's just interesting to know whether 3 years into the last strategic plan, the departments still believe that we were on the right path. And I think overall, from what I hear, the answer to that question is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ready for a 5-minute stretch?
Sure.
Okay, let's take, if we can keep it to 5 minutes or so, and then we'll just keep going.
I couldn't find a parking spot.
Really?
picked up somebody
Yep.
else's gun and use it. I can use mine. Wheat and corn on my dog.
We spent a little time to share a little information gathering. It's got us thinking, I think, about a few things. We've talked about, we've talked about the current state of the county and of your administration here and departments here. And we've also talked about some major themes and needs that were identified from the departmental strategic plans. So I'd like us to spend the next bit of time talking about what you'd like to see happen here, what you would like to try to achieve over the next 3 years. And Sonny, you had mentioned feeling, I mean, I got the impression from you that you're pretty proud of the last plan that you did and what was achieved, and that you really set a good plan last time, and you achieved some things. You didn't achieve 100%, but you made some good progress, and you feel pretty good about that. So we want you to feel the same way in 2015 when you look back at the last 3 years.
I didn't bring my 2010, 2012 plan with me either, but, I think when we go through that plan, if we look at it, we still have some, we still have some items that aren't done. We've moved forward on the vast majority of them. Some of the goals and objectives we had will never be done, but we've done a very good job, and I think through the communication and what we're hearing here this morning, I think we're going to move forward in the future. Some of our things, priorities may have changed. I don't think the goals per se have changed, but some of the priorities may have changed, and I think that's what we really need to evaluate. And I think it's probably the smartest thing would have been if we'd brought the old one in just to make sure. But
I want you to start with I want you to start with a clean slate. I don't want you to.
No, and that's fine. We have different people. Times are different, but I think we need to somewhere along the way evaluate what's left in the old one and see whether it's still a priority. If it's not a priority, there's no reason for it to continue to be in the next plan. But if they're still part of the items in the 2012 plan that are still priorities amongst the commissioners, it needs to be carried forward into the next plan.
So I'm going to make a to-do list. Okay. And one of the things we'll do for the next time is we'll look at the previous plan and see if there's anything there that...
And it may not, and it's certainly not a perfect document, but I think it's certainly a valued document.
So anything that's outstanding that was left to be accomplished or continued from that plan. Okay. It was a very excellent plan. I'd agree with you there. So, in thinking about what you'd like to accomplish over the next few years as a group, Christine, you mentioned earlier we should be focused on outcomes. Are there outcomes that we should be talking about that you're going to try to accomplish? Is 3 years enough of a horizon for you to set some outcomes out there that you're going to try to achieve over the next 3 years? And or is it some other unit of measurement that you want to think about in terms of just laying out what you'd like to try to do over the next few years? What are you going to brag to me about in 3 years when I come to sit in the public seat and hear you do your update on the previous plan and set your next strategy?
I have these visions. I have to be careful how I say that, especially with my husband in the room.
And let's try to be realistic about what really, so we all have big dreams, but yeah.
This is a vision, and again, it is an achievable vision. My vision is that Grand Traverse County is the county in the state of Michigan that veterans want to come and live in. I think veterans add a great deal to our community, and I would like to see us be the county, the number one county in the state of Michigan for veterans.
Where are we at right now? Where is this?
I have no idea.
Okay. Can you tell me if we're on 5, the second piece of 5, or are we on 6?
I'm kind of
Jumping around.
jumping around.
Okay,
The
all right.
question I asked is really related to number 6.
Okay.
So I was sensitive to the time, and so I was moving forward.
Okay.
Do you think there are things, Larry, that we didn't talk about in number
No, I
5?
just wanna
I thought we
make sure.
did. I thought we did a pretty thorough job of sort of getting there, so I felt
So
comfortable.
we're at 6. Okay, all right, good.
But I wasn't expecting someone who was really paying attention to the agenda, so, so thank you for that. So I'm doing number 6, which isn't quite vision, but it's certainly going to lead us to creating your vision. So when Christine says she has a vision that Grand Traverse County is the number one county in the state for veterans,
If a veteran is going to pick a location to live in the state of Michigan, I'd like him or her to pick Grand Traverse County.
that this is the place,
This is it.
for lots of reasons. There's jobs, there's support services for folks that maybe have some needs after being discharged from the service. There's beautiful place to live, for lots of reasons.
And we have to, we have to understand our dynamics of the Grand Traverse County region. We are a four-season destination resort community that has grown into a quasi-semi, with all the communities in northern Michigan, we're probably the largest north of Clare. So, now we've become the center hub for financial, real estate, financial, medical, and retail, hospitality, tourism is kind of our hub now in terms of our economic aspects of the community. And so we have to recognize, when you ask the question, what do we want as a governmental unit or as a community or the county's mission statement over the next 3 years, we have to understand that we have an aging population that's coming to, the retirees are coming to Grand Traverse County for the retirement plans, moving from southeast Michigan and down south up to Grand Traverse County. And there's a lot of people that leave during the winter to other summer homes, and we're more of a family-orientated community than a singles community. So we have a lot of dynamics that are going on within our county that really what you have to understand then you come back and say, okay, based on all those dynamics, what do we want to be? Are we going, because this is what we have coming into our community right now, and this is what our community is. So I think we have to take and count all those aspects before we start listing things about what we want it to be. We have to understand the dynamics of our community and the trend in our community of what, the growth factors and who's coming up, and, and our population group in our county is getting older. So, they'll need more services for Commission on Aging and veterans and those kinds of things. So I think you have to understand the trend and the dynamics of what's occurring in the county.
So for our to-do list, having some demographics and some census data and sort of seeing what's going on in terms of who lives here, who's migrating here, what's going on with the population would be useful for you, Larry?
Yeah, we're becoming, the population's getting older, we have more retirees. We're having, a big factor is that we have to deal with tourism. That means, harder hits on roads and more public safety. So, you have to understand the dynamics of how we have to treat those things that are impacting us.
Okay. So can
Am
we?
I making sense or no? Am I making sense?
It does make sense. And I think it makes sense in particular related to services and programs that you want to deliver. But as a whole, there's probably other things that no matter what goes on with the population, you want to try to achieve as a group. And so I think maybe we focus on those things this morning, and then we bring back some more information for you And then we can focus a little bit more on the programs and services and other things that might meet specific population needs.
Financial
Yeah.
stability. You know, we're always worried about money, and it seems like if we don't get this grant or that grant, that now we're scared. Financial stability, and part of that's going to be, I would think, I know in my business, the biggest cost I face are the people the wonderful people that work for me. I think that we need to take a look at paying these people more like the private industry does, based on performance, rather than the way we've been doing it in the past. So I don't know where that fits, but
I'm going to put that as on a list of potential strategies or
okay.
objectives
It's
versus...
hard for me to know where these
It's okay,
things fit, yeah.
and you can see I'm going to end up doing lots of sorting
Okay.
when we're outside the room. So I'll take things, but I won't lose it, but I might not list it. But I put financial stability here as one of the things that, for you folks, this is really one of the first things you brought up when we started talking about the current state. And you have lots of things, lots of needs, so the financial stability and the revenue is a pretty important part, I think, of your agenda, isn't it, for the next few years?
I think the best thing that we got going there is the possibility of going into a 3-year plan for budgets. And when we get done with this 3-year plan, every year after that, we're not going to be looking at next year. We're going to be looking at 3 years down the road. Every time we start doing a budget, it will be 3 years down the road that we're looking at. I think that's going to help our financial stability. And to me, that's the most exciting part that we're going to be working on. You know, that focus on there. The other thing is that I'm looking at an economic development plan in place for employment.
For what?
For employment. So that everybody that is capable of working is working. And also, when you do that, you will reduce poverty and you will reduce the need for social services.
Yes.
So I think we need to keep that in mind, and whether that's our job or it's a job of the community. You know, and I don't think it's all government that has to do that kind of stuff. I think it's a job of the community bringing together to make sure those kinds of things start to take and come into play. We can do that by providing a 3-year financial projections and expense as to where we're going to go, how we're going to get there, and then start working into the future.
So let's just take this item for a minute and pick it apart a little bit. So if it is a priority and an area of focus for the county commissioners to make sure the economic development plan is really in place for the county that creates jobs for everyone, can you do this alone?
I don't believe it's even going to be within our control.
So what role would you play with this?
I believe we participate, but the fact is, you know, we've already heard from the state that all of our economic development monies are being turned over to regional corporations. The county will no longer run our own EDC program. That's a done deal. You know, I don't believe that we as a board are going to be in the position to control economic development in our community. It's a regional issue, it's a community issue, you know, and unfortunately, you know, sitting in the chair that I sit in 75 or 80 hours a week besides this one, the fact is, Herb, you can talk about the fact that we need to provide a job, but I'll tell you what, you can't hire people that want to work.
No.
You know, I hear day in and day out about how many people are unemployed and they can't find a job and this and that. But I'll tell you what, trying to get people to come to work simply doesn't happen. And you know, that's a social thing. It's a society thing. And we in this board are not in a position to do it or to fix it. But somebody is going to have to fix it because people don't want to work. You know, the number, you know, my normal work week for my employees is 49 hours a week. And I'll tell you what, in trying to hire somebody and tell them, oh, by the way, you've got to work, even 45 hours a week, they don't want to work 45 hours a week. Right now, I've got some guys that aren't working on Saturdays, but if I go to them and say, hey, I need you to come in tomorrow, boy, I better have a really good reason and be able to argue with them on Tuesday that I need them to work on Saturday because they don't want to work. And those are just the facts. It's real easy to sit around and say, well, we're gonna provide a job for everybody. One of the things that we have to get back to, Larry talked about the demographics and Chris talked about bringing more and more veterans here. The fact is, we have a smaller and smaller percentage of the people in our community that are working and doing the jobs and providing the services, but yet more and more people want additional services and nobody's working to pay for them or provide them. I think I seen something recently that like 46% of the people working in the United States work for a governmental entity, either local, state, or federal. How can the rest of us, and then if we got 28% unemployment or some stupid ass thing, how do the rest of us afford to pay for them?
I'm not going to give this one up quite yet.
Well,
I'm going to pick on Christine a little bit. Let's say your outcome.
I leave the room for 2 seconds. I mean, geez.
So easy. You're so easy. Your desired outcome here is to create more jobs. Create more jobs. And whether people will take the jobs or not, maybe it serves as a magnet to bring veterans and young retirees that might want to work a little bit so we won't. I believe you that it's hard to find workers, so we'll just set that aside. But our outcome here is to create more jobs. What role does Grand Traverse County play in trying to achieve that outcome?
Sometimes we just have to get out of the way. Sometimes our rules and regulations prohibit growth in our companies. So looking at our inspections, looking at our certain rules that you got to follow this in order to be able to do it, you got to go through all these types of hoops. And pretty soon somebody says, well, I give up, I'm not even going to do it. I'm going to go someplace else that they don't have all those rules and regulations. So I think we need to look at whether or not we are in the way of any kind of economic growth. And I don't know if we are or not. I mean, we have to be looking at the health and safety of our community when we are providing these services, and sometimes, though, that gets in the way. A perfect example is the Michigan Public Health Department decided that the Boy Scouts had to put smoke alarms in all the tents. Excuse me, you're not helping businesses. You're not making this a state that wants to welcome people to be able to come into it. When you start doing these,
you're helping business if you sell smoke.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't work,
No.
And so, do we have any of those things in our community that inhibit that? That's the economic development portion that I think we can play in being able to do it. Financially, I don't think so. I think that has to be done from our community, from the businesses, from the people. They have to be engaged and willing to be able to get involved and figure out what is the best economic development plan that we want to put together so that we do start, the outcome is reducing people in poverty, reducing the number of people that are going to Father Fred, reducing the number of people that are going in for all these human services needs. That's the outcome. But how we get there, I'm not sure.
So as we think about some of the things you've got on your list right now that you'd like to try to set as, priorities for the county commissioners, like being the #1 place in the state for veterans, having financial stability, having an economic development plan in place, all of these things require collaboration. There's not a single one of these that you can do right in this room or within the departments that exist under your control. I don't think. So, and that's not a bad thing. It's just the reality of when you're when you look at this, you're talking about even more collaboration than what you're currently doing. Is that what you envision for your future, that it's going to be partner, collaborate, more and more?
No, the other thing I think is, and we hit it here, is are we up to technology? Where are we going to go? How far are we going to go? What is the importance of it? And who should we provide that technology for? And making sure that we got the staff to maintain it once we put it in place. Because I don't think we've done a good job with that. If somebody comes along and said, I need computers, so you add computers and you do all that kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden our IT department's going, we can't handle it because we don't have enough staff. So we didn't look far enough forward in our planning to say, when you add this, you have to add this also.
So this, one of the things I put out there was not enough outside advice, not to impugn the people that are doing IT now. They could be geniuses for all I know. They are compared to me.
Yep.
But when you look at a huge department like that, they could be a little bit myopic. Do we need some outside advice about, look at the whole system, look into the future for us, advise us?
That's future looking. And
Yeah,
I think that's our job, is to be looking at that kind of stuff, looking outside that.
Well, I know that I personally don't have the knowledge to make that decision.
Me either.
I would need an expert. I don't know if I mean, we could say we want that as a board, but I don't think any of us can provide that information.
It's not our job to provide it.
Okay.
It's our job to says the direction that we want Dave to take his staff is we want you to look at the best, most economical way to bring technology into our community or into our county commission, in our county, for all of our employees.
Okay, and he
That's a
might
goal.
say to us, we need someone from the outside.
And that would be his responsibility to bring in that.
Okay.
But
It would be our
then,
responsibility to budget for it.
yeah, it'd be
Our
your job to
budget,
figure out how to fund it.
Right.
And that's probably because this comes with a big price tag.
Yeah.
So, and not that it's not important, it's just to have, so let's say what you would like to achieve in the next 3 years is to have a technology plan in place with a budget, and maybe have it be long-term, as long-term as technology can be, since it's sort of like reading the tea leaves, isn't it? Yeah. But so that you can, over a longer period of time, know financially what kind of resources are needed, and then help Dave and his team secure the funding, whether it's some kind of a grant or whether it's from public funds here locally. You know, that's really kind of the question you'll have to grapple with.
I have some ideas.
I'd like to
Yay!
I'd like to
Okay.
piggyback the technology plan discussion, and together with that, there's a sister, and that is, we have started over the last year or two trying to scan all of our documents from paper to a digital format, and we have started with the courts, and all of a sudden, we've got one court almost done. The rest of the courts, they want theirs done, and now they're asking for additional tech people, additional help to accomplish that, because they want exactly what that. So all of a sudden, you have one court done. Now, we don't have a plan for records retention for the rest of all the courts and for all the rest of the departments within Grand Traverse County. To get, now that the county commission is moving forward hopefully in a paperless environment with our board meetings, our departments are also looking at that so they can work with through the courts now. They're using very little paper now. It's all uploaded in a technology format, and the scanning part of filing documents to the courts and filing cases to the court now has all come electronically. So now we have all our departments coming in saying, gee, we need that capability too, and there's a cost to paperwork and all those other things. But on top of that, you have the required retention of documents that the county needs to have, and can all that be scanned in? So we have a huge challenge moving forward, not only in the technology area, which is area, but the basic technology, but if you put a sub down on, below that subsection, it's the scanning ability for retention of documents and also the ability to file for information not by paper, but by via technology for the people to transmit to the county to get their information, so.
So like a cloud storage or
Yeah,
something
so,
like that?
we got several angles in terms of technology, in terms of that we need something in, some kind of plan in place to get to that direction.
Does security fit in there somewhere too? I mean,
And we're starting that right now.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, it seems like all this stuff
All fits together, doesn't it?
meshes,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we might need some type of czar to help us put this together.
It's kind of interesting, the discussions kind of changed, because earlier throughout the morning, we talked about our number one concern was public safety. And we've got half a dozen items up here yet, and we haven't talked about public safety being as our number one goal. And I think a safe environment, a safe community has still got to be our number one thing.
And these aren't in any order of priority, so,
I understand that.
yeah.
And the second item that I think that we truly have to get a handle on or get our head around somehow or another is our infrastructure needs, whether it be the county buildings, the community roadway, whether it's the water and sewer system. We need to get our head around the infrastructure needs of our community, because we're not there yet, and it's getting worse. If anybody hadn't missed the potholes this morning, it's getting worse.
As far as technology goes, there's no dearth of ideas. I mean, there are thousands of ideas, literally thousands of ideas on how to improve processes, create efficiencies, and deliver services better to the public technologically. Mobile applications for construction codes, for the health department, for, all these apps have to be developed, which would make their jobs much more efficient, would, do a lot of things, plus all the internet work that needs to be done to allow the public to do things from home rather than come into a county building or come into one of the county offices to get their business done. There's a ton of ideas to get that done. Resources. Resources have not been developed, and we've got a lot of departments that came in that I talked to Dean Bott.
You mean
with
money?
Finance.
You
Yeah.
mean money?
Money.
Yeah.
He said, well, it would be great if we could image our stuff and do this, and he could see it all in his mind, but he's not even asking for it.
I see.
Because it's so far beyond what we've been doing. We haven't been looking in that direction, and it hasn't been a priority of the board to do that. So I think that's what you were hearing when we asked the departments, what do you think? They were saying, we need to start thinking about how to do this. We got to catch up to our public. Our public is ready to dial in and,
Right. Right.
to get on the internet and download something and be done with it.
Taking credit cards, and we still only take credit cards in a couple
In a
of
couple
different
places,
departments. We don't accept credit cards as payment.
So that's in the
Oakland
technology.
County,
Yeah.
Oakland County.
But that's
Yeah,
part
Oakland County's-
but that's part of economic development. That's part of
And they give that
making
stuff
us-
away, a lot of it.
making us more accessible, get out of the way, make it so that people are easily accessible to be able to get to our services and get on with their business.
But you have to remember, those things all come with a cost.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Even the acceptance of a credit card, you pay a percentage plus a processing fee. So the revenue that you thought you were going to get isn't what you thought you were going to get now, because they're paying for it with a credit card.
I think you just, you hit on something. You said that we didn't really talk about public safety, although it's their top priority. You got over 50 officers in the out county on the road, and we've got, I don't know how many in the city. I mean, we have a lot of public safety out there. And we spend a lot of money on our courts, and all the resources in our IT department, a lot of our resources are being used. They're demanding that imaging system be up and running, and it's a wonderful thing, but they're demanding it. So we're using those resources. I think what you're finding out is your priorities in your last strategic plan are being met. You put your resources into those areas. Now, you got some other areas that have been, waiting for some attention, and I think that's what you're hearing from a lot of your other departments.
Is it a first step, and you may already have this, Dave, so it was a question I didn't ask you. I should have thought of it probably, but is a first step to get your arms around exactly what we're talking about in terms of a price tag for technology and for infrastructure repairs, so that you know the dollar amount?
We have to bite it off in pieces. There's no way we can talk about an overall picture.
But even if you have an itemized plan of everything you need, at least it helps you start to get your arms around it, and you can prioritize.
I think that could be created fairly easily.
Can it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that if IT took their own internal needs as far as, the larger infrastructure, servers and routers and those kind of things, and then go to each of the departments and talk to them about their technology needs and what they'd like to accomplish, and then put it all into one specifically technology document, I think that could be done
So we got the
fairly easily.
Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 needs, and you could at least get a dollar amount. Then that gives you the ability, as the county commissioner, to prioritize where dollars could be shifted potentially from someplace else, or what you need to, bring in terms of new revenue.
And we recently saw a piece of that, because we saw Don's inventory, if you will, of where we're at, and how many hundreds of computers we have that are still operating on Windows XP. And not only, it's not just as easy to say, well, we're going to put Windows 7 in there, because the hardware won't facilitate the software then. So there's a lot of issues, but I think the first piece of that is the inventory that we just received.
Okay.
And I think, then the obvious next step is to have Don evaluate, and prioritize where to go to with the rest of it.
Yes, Charlie.
I'm more with Dan Lathrop on this. I think this IT thing is county-wide. It's not just the IT department. That's what we're focusing on. I think it might be time to bring in some sort of outside consultant to look at our whole situation and let Don do the work he has to do. He told me he's so busy, he doesn't know what's out there anymore. He's busy keeping what we have working. And I believe him.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Okay. Okay. So am I hearing that technology is a pretty high priority for you over the next 3 years?
Yeah.
Would that be one of the...
We heard that.
You heard that from the departments, but
I think we also hear it from the community. I think the community wants to be able to do the online thing and do the payments and deal with those issues without having to come here.
Really, it's the other day I decided to make a change in my plans when I went to Washington to get airplane tickets and to change the hotel room. And I tried to do it on the phone, and I couldn't get anywhere. And I got the internet, and I got it done right away. Faster, cheaper, better. And that's the way the world is going. I think we have to catch up.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Chris?
Well, I wasn't necessarily going to talk about the 8 hours of technology that I've sat through.
Yeah.
But I will cover it briefly. One of the things that Oakland County does is they charge a fee. And they do almost everything through the internet. You can pay tickets, get your, pay fees, get birth certificates. You can do just about everything online. And they charge a fee, and it's extra. They charge a little extra other than what it costs. And that extra money goes to technology for the county. And the gentleman who works for L. Brooks Patterson in Oakland County, who's...
Bob Datto. Bob Datto.
Thank you. He said, in all the years they've been doing this, they have not had one single complaint about the fee. And then you have to ask yourself, would people at $4 a gallon for gas, do they want to come in here and pay a bill? No, they don't. They'll pay the $1 or $1.50 fee so that they can do it online. And Oakland County went to Wolverine Lake. It's got a I love this. I can look it up right here. Population 4,300. And they gave Wolverine Lake this technology. It's out there for us. They've already done it. So I just wanted to...
That'd be a good example of giving a service the
And
public needs
they give
at
a
a
lot of
value
this,
that, yeah.
They give a lot of it away for free. They want to share it.
Okay. So I'm capturing some things sort of in our action item strategy side, and some items in your, what do the county commissioners want to achieve by 2013. So I'm hearing a pretty resounding technology plan in place with priorities for development and a corresponding budget.
Now, just so everybody knows, I also sit on the MAC Economic Development Taxation Committee, and one of the things that they are going to be talking about at Friday's meeting is House Bill 4157. The House is talking about creating a loan program for IT, for local governments. So
Oh, good,
I will let you know after Friday what that's all about.
What about, I'm going to keep us going here, watching the time.
I guess I have one question for you
Yeah,
at this
sure.
point. Is that, you know, we're throwing a lot of stuff out, and you're writing it, and these are all very important things, but we only have so many resources, okay?
That's right.
We only have so much time, so much staff, and our budget right now for 013 is pretty much locked in with little reserves. So I just want to bring this out, that when, I don't know if you plan on trying to prioritize everything we're saying, or we're just going to lay it all out and do it at our next session, but, you know, everything we're throwing out at you today
It's not all
very
equal.
are very important, but may not be accomplished in 013, because we're already into March of 013. We already have a budget locked in. We don't have any reserves left to do a lot of this stuff. That, you know, in a lot of this stuff, you know, we may have to delay to 014, and maybe when you look at what is your vision for 015, maybe the 015 vision is going to be, let's see if we can get a lot of this stuff done, but, you know, over the next several years, but we're not going to be able to compress everything we're doing and everything we're saying all in 9 months or in the next 18 months.
This is a 3-year plan.
Okay.
So that's the idea, but it's your plan.
I just want to make
So
sure
you
we-
can set the horizon however you want.
I just want to make sure.
And what I'm going to do is take all this stuff, plus lots of other documents that Dave and John have provided to me, and I'm going to create a document, a planning document. I'm going to distribute it to you all so that you can study it and mark it up and comment, and then when we get back together the next time, we're going to keep working and we
Okay,
will
because-
prioritize.
Because on your title, you've got what we want to accomplish in 013.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I
The years,
think.
yeah, the years are getting away from me. It's 2015, sorry.
Okay. Now I got you.
I'm sorry.
I'm on board.
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling.
Poor facilitation. Poor facilitation, I'm sorry. Thanks for,
getting
thank
scared.
you,
I was getting
Larry,
scared.
for pointing
Yeah,
that out. Okay,
we're gonna
so we
double
want to have a
meetings.
technology and plan by the end of 3 years that has priorities for development within that plan, because there's so many aspects to it, a budget, and potentially some sources of funding, including, you know, maybe Christine's idea or some
Well,
other.
it's not mine, I stole it.
Well, grant opportunities from the state or loans from the state. There might be some funding that we can also identify.
I think one other priority that we have to have, and I'd really like to see it at least started in 2013, is we have to have a human resources evaluation of our personnel and their salaries. You know, we call it a wage and salary study, whatever you do, reclassification plan. You know, these people's jobs have changed significantly over the last 10 years, and we haven't touched a reclassification plan or a salary study or a salary evaluation in 10 years.
I agree with that, and I think I would tie into that performance-based.
I have no
You know,
problem with that.
along those lines, I would like to see us take an approach that Beta has taken, where they set a salary and they set performance standards, and if you exceed those performance standards, you are recognized for it monetarily, along with pats on the back. But this is done in private industry all the time, and it works.
But you do have to remember, we have union contracts in place.
Yeah, we got to make
They do too, though. They have the same unions we do, and they've been successful. I don't want to step on any toes, but I think we should look at what they did.
I'm just saying we should have a
Yeah.
discussion.
Just
on
look at
Let's
it.
look
It's
at
pretty good.
When we talk about human resources plan with job classifications and salaries and compensation study, do we also need to be thinking about kind of the staffing model for the next generation of the county administration here? I mean,
Well,
you're...
Cats and Light and Power are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you might have a real different staffing model as you look to the future and different kinds of needs here. And I don't know, Dave, you may have tackled that already, but as we kind of think about just looking at the whole, it seems like you would be, it would be limiting not to look at, boy, this is the staff, the qualifications, the type of staff, type of people we need here.
There are consultants that do that. Public
Right here.
Strategies Group is huge in that.
And the staff in the department strategic plans talked about training and, the training plan that sort of accompanies it. So look at the whole human resources picture rather than just picking out salaries and compensation and job classifications.
And we absolutely have to look at the things we're doing, as Sunny said, and ask ourselves if we should if we should continue, and at what level. Always frightens me when I agree with you, Sunny.
Me too.
If we go through another study, we'd better use it this time because that last one was nothing but a waste of money.
Which one was that, the
It
Siegel?
sure was.
Siegel.
Yeah.
No, we didn't use it.
Oh, it was a flawed study.
It was flawed.
Pam?
It was flawed.
It becomes
It was a
flawed if you don't
flawed
use it.
study, but it was, at least gave us a baseline.
I think, going back to
Gave us a
Larry's
baseline.
concern about the
Yeah.
date, I don't think the technology plan can't be done in 2013. We can direct staff that we want the plan in place. Implementation could take 5 years. It could take 10 years. We don't know once that plan identifies it. But I think you could look at making a plan in this year for 2013. And the same thing with human resources. What is our plan to do that kind of stuff? Not that we're going to implement it, not that we're going to do anything. It's just, this is what we think that we want to do, and if we can accomplish it in 2013, great.
Well, it's a starting point.
It's a starting point. It really starts, but it also gives Dave and his staff direction that says, this is where the county commission is looking at. It's like infrastructure repairs. Okay, give us a plan for the next 5 years. Give us the plan. Develop that and do that this year so that we can start to do our budgets in for 3 years and 5 years down the road to be able to do that. I think the other one is that we had talked a couple of years ago about doing dashboards. And we looked at a company coming in to be able to help us to be able to do that. Do we want to look at something like that? I don't
Midland
know.
has a nice dashboard. Nice.
There are a number of them out there.
So,
And we will have a nice one, too.
I believe you.
But maybe we can try to make sure that one of the results of this document is that we get it to a level where you have a dashboard report.
Dan?
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
You mentioned public strategy groups. There's other groups.
Oh, there are.
There are others, but, not to sound ridiculous, but the Disney Institute, there are other groups that can, let's say they charged us $50,000, but they saved us $1 million. Are we willing to look at the concept of bringing in some pros to help us answer some of these questions?
Let's think big for the moment, and then we'll get more tactical.
I think
later.
that's big. I think it's big to think about. We're asking all these questions.
We could seek grant money for that.
And I know we're all intelligent, but this is really, we're looking at, what did you say, $37 million a year that we're managing?
Well,
That's
that's just the
big.
general fund, yeah.
Yeah. So I think getting some, not that you're not a professional, I don't mean that, but it's just, this is very big. We've got some very complex questions. At NACO, I saw books this thick on answering these questions. Maybe we could use some professional help.
Well, unfortunately, what comes down to, and I've done this a little bit, but you can get the help, and you can they'll tell you what you've got to do, not any different than the past wage and salary study. But the bottom line is, if you can't afford to implement the study, it doesn't do you any good to pay for the
Right.
study. And we've got bookshelves full of studies that have been created in this community that were never implemented for a multiple reasons,
Sonny-
whether or not they felt that the study was flawed, whether it was just flat too expensive.
Well, the professional strategies group will come in and give you
It's a
this
process.
study, and if you don't like their ideas, you don't have to pay for them. So there are groups that work on contingency,
That's
and if they're out there, what would be the harm in just looking at it? That's all I'm saying, just take a look.
I'm just echoing Dan.
I put it on our list here,
And there
Charlie.
are groups out there, whether it's your telephone bill, your communications bill, your insurance, or anything else, will come in and base their pay on what they can do for you. And if they do nothing, you don't pay them.
So because early on, when we were listing the current state, one of the things you said is we need to use more outside help. And now you're saying we need to use more outside technical assistance and help. I'm adding it to your list of things you'd like to accomplish, to get appropriately using outside help that adds value to your work.
Pam, I want to piggyback on something that Chairman Lemkool said, and that is the 3-year budget. And I brought with me the Price of Government book written by David Osborne, one of the founders of Public Strategies Group. And budgeting for outcomes, we would probably use, it's a 5-step process if we do a 3-year budget plan. You decide whether or not whether you believe your revenues are going to increase, remain flat, or go down. And then you set the price of government. How much money do you have to spend? And then you set the priorities of government. You decide what outcomes, what results the citizens are going to value. You set the price of each of those priorities. How much are you going to spend on that priority? And then finally, you purchase the priorities in a way that will best produce the desired results. And if we do a 3-year budget plan, and those are the steps that will work. And I've been a preacher of this for 6 years. I'm sure I sing this song ad nauseum, but
We decided not to go with it.
Okay.
They're all about contracting out.
I added in on our
Employees and contractors.
list here that your 3-year budgets
That's what-
might be based on outcomes that you want to achieve. Okay. So right now, what we have for what the county commissioners want to achieve by 2015, we've talked about having an infrastructure plan with identified needs, budgets, priorities, so that you can begin looking at, okay, how do we pay for it? A technology plan in place with priorities for development, again, a corresponding budget, and how are we going to pay for it? Human resources planning related to moving, looking, do we have the right staffing model for the future? Job classifications that match that, training needs, salaries and compensation, and a bonus program, performance-based program, as that fits in. And then we need to use outside help to support our work wherever it adds value. Now, we've also talked about public safety, financial stability, economic development. Are those still, and creating a place,
that's just my personal
yeah,
vision.
for veterans? So do any of these, financial stability and economic development, do they make it to your priority list? Dave?
I think it's, the economic development piece is attractive to business, attractive to tourists, attractive to, and creating jobs. I think all those things are all wrapped together in
And
a,
bringing tax base.
and that's what that's all about. And it's a big, broad attractiveness of our community to, and, all those things stem from, being an attractive place to live, high quality of life. Some of those other things were like high employee morale issues and excellent customer service issues. I think that our I don't have to ask my board, do you think we ought to have excellent customer service? Yes, I think. We ought to have a culture of that? Yes. In 3 years, when we look back, I would want to be very proud of saying, we are, an organization that is absolutely committed to excellent customer service. We are, creating a more attractive community, or more attractive to business, more attractive to veterans, more attractive to, it's a more attractive place to live. Retirees.
Okay.
I guess that's all.
Okay.
This may not be very important, but it's something that's been on my mind. I'd like to see us do something special as a board the next year and a half while we're here that we're known for. I'm not that all this isn't special, but maybe as a group we support this 911.
Smart 911.
Figure out a way that, I'm just BSing here, but maybe we put a tent in the open space during Cherry Festival and we man it, and we get people, and we ourselves are there and sign them up. We take we mascot some good thing for the community so that they get it that we care about them. We could pick anything. I mean, it could be the veterans thing, or I know we're all tired, but I'm talking about some little cherry on top that we as a group do that's good for the community and good PR.
Some highly visible project
That's
or...
we as a team help on together, not just separately, but we, off campus, we meet and we do something good for the community.
Like, how about the Day of Caring? The county commissioners sign up
Well, I wouldn't...
to do a project together.
Maybe a project that...
To do a project together that day.
We can window wash at Twin Lakes.
Highly visible out there. On the current state list that we created, communication came up. Is that something that's high on your screen? You said communication officer pretty immediately, like that's something you've talked about quite a bit, and strengthening communication with the public.
I think it's, I've been sitting here for this is my 21st year, and it's probably one of the most frustrating factors of serving on this Board of Commissioners is the public, as Herb said, doesn't know what the role of county commissioners are and what they do, and when you go for election, you have to explain everything that we do, and we basically operate about 40 different businesses, and we're a policy budget making board and those kinds of, but all the great things that we do on a daily basis and the decisions we make on this board does not reach the public. The only thing that reaches the public are controversial issues that want to be raised by the press and the media, and so they can form opinions and not form opinions on public policy. So, I've always been a proponent of, when I go to NACO, there are other counties that have public information officers. There are counties and cities that are in one building like our situation that share a communication person, and their responsibility is to get what we do out to the public on a daily basis. They send press releases out to all the news media and the radio stations and the newspaper. It's a center point for the public to get information about what's going on in the county. They update the website. They do all various forms of communication, and they keep the public informed. And we have chosen not to do that and spend our money in other ways and just relied on our updating our web, and we've done a great job recently here in the last couple of years of really building up our website, so there is information on our website, but not everyone's going to dial up our website every day to find out what's going on or what to look at. So, and we became televised. That was a huge thing that we did. We televised our meetings, which is a huge help, but I think there's still a big gap out there about all the things that we do, all the good things we do throughout our term that never really gets out. So It's just a frustration
So
on
you
my
sound
part.
like you're an advocate that this should be,
I'm an advocate, we have to do something. I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's an FTE for a person, or it's just the way that we design communication to the public.
You know, Larry, unfortunately, and I agree that we have to figure out better ways to communicate to the public what we do. But I can send press releases, or you can have some press releases sent to
Right.
the
That means that they're not even
Traverse
gonna run
City
it.
Record Eagle and the local television stations.
They're not going to run it.
And it's not going to show up. It's not going to, it just simply, they're just not going to talk about it. The fact is, and I can't imagine that there's so many people that don't have real lives that actually watch us on TV every Wednesday night, but it's amazing to me how many people tell me they watch. I believe that we are connecting with more people in our community between the website and the TV than we will ever connect with by the total subscription of the people that purchase the Record Eagle or watch the local news stations, because they don't watch it.
but having a communication plan doesn't necessarily outline what you're going to do for
No,
communication. So,
I
yeah.
understand that, and I used to believe that it would be important for us to move forward with some sort of a communications officer that could send out press releases. But I think we're reaching more people today with the website and with the televised meetings than we will ever meet with the local media.
I don't disagree with that.
One of the things that really, I think, confuses the people when we talk about that we want to get information out, but yet we had a program come to us that had in their budget an outreach person, and we asked them to cut it. The Commission on Aging had a gentleman who was responsible for, they contracted with him to get their media stuff out. And yet we as county commissioners said, we don't think that's important, you ought to get rid of it. So we're talking out of both sides of our mouth when we do that. And that's a problem. I think it's really critical that if it's a focus, that you need to support it. So, I think by doing, we've had some really good press in the last 2 or 3 months since we got started here as a board. It's really been positive. People are finding that we're doing some really good things for our community. That's the kind of stuff that happens. But when we start talking out of both sides of our mouths, then the negative comes in and says, well, you guys don't know what you're talking about, because in this point, you want this, but over here, you don't want it. So I think, and your big idea is supporting the departments as to what they're doing with the resources that they need to get it done, and then having them communicate that out to the public as to what's happening. Positive things are happening in Grand Traverse County. Positive things are being reported in the news media, and we are doing good work for our community.
Newsflash for you, Herb. We've been doing positive things for this community for
100 years.
The fact that finally somebody's going to start to give us a little bit of credit for it, that's not necessarily something that's been within our control.
Okay. So communication plan in place. We're not talking about specific strategies, but you want them to be effective strategies for communicating with the public on an ongoing basis, and continuing to tell the story about the good work we're doing, and making sure that folks know how the specific plans are being executed and what's happening on their behalf.
That communication has to work both ways. The communication has to work both ways, because we sit here night after night and ask for public comment 2 times in every meeting, and there's nobody sitting in the audience. I get a few calls at my business, I get a few calls and I get emails other than that, but basically the communication that I get from the public has to be from the people that I know and that I talk to. I don't talk to 85,000 people in this community, and if you take all of us together, we're probably lucky if we talk to 800 people in this community. But we're trying to represent 85,000 people.
This communication plan really ties to your technology plan, doesn't it?
Yep.
Because using technology to communicate may be pretty important.
It's really interesting because Long Lake, do you get a lot of people at your township meeting? Blair gets a lot of people out to their township meeting.
Well, there's
Garfield
entertainment
gets-
value there.
Well, Garfield gets very few. I don't know what East Bay is, and some of the other townships, when you're visiting, do they have a lot of public come in?
Just mostly people that are doing reports.
Most of the people, but the thing of it is that, is there a difference between those people that have public television and those units of government that don't, in the way that people show up for their meetings? I don't know if that's really a true factor. I just know that I went to Garfield last night, there was nobody. I went to Blair, and there was probably 20 people there. And they weren't all there to give reports. So, there is a difference here as to how we do communicate and how we put our plan together. And I think that's a key as to where do we really want to go with our communications? And that's the kind of discussion we need to get into, not how we're going to do it, but what do we want to do?
What do we want to achieve? Yeah, what's the message?
What's the message?
What's the message? What story do we want to tell? What do we want to achieve? We have just a few minutes left, and before we wrap up, I would like you to just take a minute. On the front of your agenda, we have a vision statement that you wrote last time. And I'd like you to look it over and tell me how you feel about that vision. I think it was written in 2008, maybe. 2008, 2009, somewhere in there.
You want us to comment on it? Is that what
Yeah.
you said?
You got an extra?
Yes, I'd like you to comment on it.
You got another one of them?
I have mine on my iPad.
I think it looks good. I think it hits everything we
Yeah.
talked about.
I do too.
Do you have extra copy?
Hey,
Perfect. Here you go, Richard.
Okay, well, now I got a minute.
Now you got more than you know what to do with, right? Thank you, John.
I think it looks good.
Yeah, what else can we do?
Better put in here, make sure you use your iPad. So you're just asking us to look at the mission statement and not the vision
The
statement?
vision statement. I want you to look at the vision statement.
Vision, okay.
Okay, and let me know, after all the discussion we've had this morning and early afternoon,
There's one phrase in here that I didn't like a number of years ago, and I'm still not
still
sure
don't
I'm
like it.
comfortable
Okay,
with.
yeah.
And that is this encourages risk-taking piece.
Ooh.
When we're talking about, dealing with taxpayers' money, taxpayers' safety, I'm not sure I'm comfortable taking very many risks.
Well, let me respond to that.
And we had the conversation before, and I'm sure Larry will
Yeah.
remember we had that conversation. It's just a piece that still bothers me, to tell the public that I'm willing to risk your
Yeah.
safety and your money.
And I will tell you that when that was presented back and when Jay Hooper and Tony Boudet were on the board, that language has stayed in there since, 20 years ago, okay? And I can tell you, when I got on the board, the explanation of what they defined as risk-taking, and it probably needs to be clarified. Risk-taking to them was the future challenge of making changes in county government for the betterment of the people, and not the status quo. So we would, that was really the definition, is that we would be proactive to the point that that we would be changing the norm and changing the normal operations, that we would actually look forward and take the risk of changing the model and for the betterment of the public. So it wasn't risk-taking in terms of a financial matter. It was from a viewpoint of we have a structure, and if we want to change that structure, we see that as risk can be good or risk can be bad. But they meant it in the text. The previous board members back when they did this meant it as we had the guts to try something new to see if it would work.
Does innovation capture
I
that?
get that in the next phrase, when it talks about innovative.
Yeah.
You know, innovative, I have no problem with. That's
And we could
thinking
take the
outside of
risk-taking
box.
thing out. I just want to let you know what they thought.
I just have that I've always had a problem with that statement about risk-taking.
Yeah, and I'm
I
I'm
just-
fine with taking it out, but that was the definition.
I like
That's how they saw it when they put it in.
You know, I like that, and I think a perfect example is Jamel from 911, when she took a risk and had her department put a Facebook page out. And she didn't have our permission to do so. She just went out and took the risk and did it. It's got some great reception on it. She took a risk when she decided to bring in Smart 911 to be able to bring it to our board to be able to see if we would approve it. I think it's really important that we let them know, but also when they take risk, we must say thanks, and we must support them when they do take these kind of risks. We don't want to have somebody do a risk and then pull the rug out from underneath of them. Now, that's how we can support risk-taking, and I think it's a critical piece to be left in there, because we want them to think outside the box. We want them, innovation is right, but I think taking a risk to be a little more creative, a little more out to the community, really, if we tell them we want them to take those kind of risks, and they do, and then we support them, that just encourages more of it.
Maybe we need to just redefine what risk-taking is in the statement.
We could use creative thinking, we could use proactive actions.
Taking out the, whatever.
I have no problem with any of the innovation things, and I think that the Facebook pages and those kind of things are very innovative ideas. I just have a really hard time telling the public that I'm going to be willing to risk anything that's theirs.
I agree with Sonny,
Charlie.
risk is a bad word. Just come up with a different word. Something that.
Well, the thing with risk is it talks about the part that everybody hasn't talked about, which is getting hammered for not doing something, for things not turning out exactly the way you expected.
Like
Taking a
single
risk
study.
that, for example, you did the oil and gas lease PRE auditor. You decided, an equalization director came forward and said, I think you ought to try this. I think you could probably get some payback later. Now, if that fails, you just spent money that you didn't need to spend. It was a waste of money. So go ahead and beat them up, fire them, do whatever you're going to do. That's discouraging risk-taking.
It
Because
is.
having them come in and say, I think we could try this and I think it might work, might have a big payoff in the end, and in this case, it looks like it will, but in the oil and gas area. But it's about the risk of coming in and saying,
It's being willing
this
to
might
fail.
not work, too.
It's being willing to fail and
Yeah.
not, and
And not getting
not
beat up for
getting
it.
beat up for it.
And having support for it, yeah.
Can we put that in there? We don't want to get
Willingness
beat
to
up.
fail.
Can you say
Does-
septic?
Setting aside the term
That's a big-
risk-taking, does the rest of this vision statement sound pretty good to you?
Well, I like the risk-taking in there.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything different with it at the moment. It sounds like we've got kind of a split decision, so I'm going to leave it just as it is. I'm going to let you think about it. We're going to get back together in April. That might be the one thing we tweak, is the term risk-taking, but now that we've had a good discussion about what that exactly means and the fact that you want to encourage some risk-taking within your team here, because there could be some real benefits to that, we'll talk about it a little bit more. We don't need to decide today. Is the rest of the vision statement look good to you?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to get back together, I believe it's April 10th.
Right.
Same place, same time, same place?
Yep.
And,
Technology? Better technology?
well, now, probably same technology, but I'm getting better at it.
We might
Better
have our
better
iPads
facilitator
I'll have your
use of
lapel
it.
microphone this time.
Better, was it operator error? Less operator error next time. So I'll be better with the technology. I'm going to take all this stuff and create a draft document. I'm going to ask you all to comment on it, and I can refine it as much as possible before we get together next time, and then we're going to continue working. And I'll sort some of these things. We're going to end up in vision, or not vision, but some things will fall into strategic focus and other places. I'll just take my best shot at representing your thinking. It's all going to be marked draft. It's not my plan. I get to leave. I don't have to execute it.
Let me ask you a question. You had a copy of our previous strategic plan in the format that it is in. So is it your intention to change that format as like, here are some established goals and then there's breakdowns? Or are you just going to create a whole different format in terms of the strategic plan going for 3 years and maybe recategorize them or and shift it? Or what do you think?
It's going to be a little different. It's going to be similar to my recommendation.
Okay.
Again, it's not my plan.
Okay.
So you get to veto it. My recommendation is going to be somewhat similar to what you did before, but I might change some of the language a little bit.
Okay.
So I like the idea, I've been doing lately with strategic plans, doing a one-page strategic blueprint. So you have everything on one page. I like that a lot. So what I would envision is you have a longer document that has some meat to it, but then there's one snapshot. Here's our mission, our vision, our overarching goals.
That'd be an executive summary and then all the details behind it.
Yeah, so that you could have it on the website, you could share it at public meetings, you could post it. I think that's just a really handy thing to have visually. So my goal will be to leave you with a one-page, some kind of diagram, and then a longer document. But my terminology might be a little bit different than the plan that you used last time. And a lot of it, I'm gonna rely on Dave and John a bit after we are done here to debrief a bit and think about what that document will look like, okay?
Thank you.
I am very comfortable with critical input, though, so I'm going to be the author, but you should feel free, you should feel free. This is what I do, I write a lot of documents and people, make their changes. You need to own it. So someone needs to leave the room and write it, but you need to own it.
We face that every day.
Okay, good. Okay. Thank you. You did a great job this morning and early afternoon, so thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you very much for doing this, and I think, Dan, you made it a point early on that this is a great way to dialogue, and I think we've had some very good dialogue here, and all different points of view coming together. The thing that I like about it is we all respect each and every opinion that was presented today, and I just hope we can continue keeping that open dialogue, that nobody's got a bad idea. We're all here to respect what's going on. We're all going to the same fork, but we may come from a different angle, and I just think that's I compliment each and every one of you for doing what you've done and the way you've come to this room today, and I really appreciate it. I don't think there's any public comment, and if not, so I think we're...
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.